Welcome back to Partum the Mess, a podcast about humorous, inspirational, and educational experiences presented by first-time moms trying to navigate parenthood while keeping our sanity, and lately that's been a little more difficult. I'm your host, Brittany, and today we have our co-hosts, Cody.
Welcome, friends.
And Jess.
Hello.
We are so excited for today's episode where Jess will share her story with us. I've been so excited. So I hope you're excited to listen and Jess is excited to share. So first, though, as always, we'll do our ketchup section. Who wants to go first?
Oh, man, I will go first. So Emmett, every time he got 2 side teeth, and I didn't even know that he was getting teeth. And then when he got his 2 front teeth, he just has reverted back to sleeping bad, which is frustrating. And the funny thing about it is, so when he takes naps, if he wakes up, he'll like sing to himself, like da 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 la la la, talk to himself, play around, and then he'll go back to sleep because he hasn't slept long enough.
You're talking about daytime, sorry?
Daytime naps, yeah. During the day, he'll just kind of play until he falls back to sleep. But at night when he wakes up, he just loses it. And I tried letting him cry it out. It was like an hour one night, and then I was like, okay, this isn't working for you. And I don't know what the difference is between night and day, but somehow he knows.
Yeah. I feel like, so I was thinking just earlier we were talking about this, and when you said that there's a difference between night and day, though you don't know what it is, it made me think of like my kids will sleep through almost any kind of noise at night. Like we would play games or we would talk at normal volumes, but during the day it's like a feather drops in a distant land and they're like, what? You know,
So
like,
it's kind of opposite.
Yeah. And I feel like they're a lot more temperamental during their naps during the day. But I mean, that time, nighttime is so critical for you to be able to sleep that it's got to be so infuriating. Not infuriating, but like stressful.
Yeah, I know that he's capable of sleeping through the night, and so waking up 3 or 4 times I'm like, this isn't necessary, bud.
You're bigger than this.
Yeah, I'm sorry
You're better
you're hurting,
than this.
but I can only nurse you some. I only have so much milk at this point.
Yeah.
Before it's just nothing that is coming out. So
yeah.
What kind of nightlight situation do you have for him?
Just on our camera. At the top of it, there's a light there. We could turn on a light. Maybe that would help him.
I'm thinking maybe I have the Hatch Baby Rest light and sound machine, which is awesome. We love it. And you can change the color of the light, the brightness of the light, and it even has a wake up, like a timer you can set. So when they can wake up and get out of bed, like as toddlers or little kids, you can have the light turn on or change color or whatever to indicate that they can get up and out of bed.
Well, that's cool.
Emma's too young, obviously, and so is Jamie, but we got it with that in mind. But yeah, we love it. It's awesome.
Yeah,
and
that's a great.
So maybe it's the darkness or something.
Yeah.
Maybe it's something about that he's not.
I
cool
just
with.
worry about him not producing melatonin if it's light in his room. So we try to keep it fairly dark, but they stress make sure that you have during nap time it's light and there's noise in at night, just like white noise and darkness. So maybe it wouldn't be too bad to have one extra light, maybe not right above his crib but in the room so that he can see around. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe he's just scared. I don't know.
Because during the daytime, no matter, it's difficult to make it pitch black.
And then also our cruise got canceled.
Oh.
Wah, wah. Yeah, because of coronavirus.
Jerk.
And I've just been like bitter. I've just
Understandable.
been pouting. So we're getting over it and it's okay. But I did a little post on Facebook and I was like, our cruise got canceled. Coronavirus. And I was like, oh, bummer. And some guy commented, just be happy you're alive. I was like,
way to be a buzzkill.
I was
You
like,
can say that about anything.
I
right?
am happy I'm alive.
The
But
fact that you
still
can
sucks.
complain is a sign you're breathing. So
Yeah. I just thought it was so funny.
that's
people.
kind of deflating. You're like, okay, I'll never complain again about anything.
Right? As long as you're alive.
Yeah.
Man.
Nothing should matter as long as you're breathing. Like, no, it still is don't get me wrong. I'm happy to be alive. I'm happy to be healthy, but I still would rather be on a cruise.
It's the same with parenting in general. Like you can be frustrated, you can be disappointed, you can be sad, upset, all negative feelings, and still love your kids and love what you're doing and love being a mom or a dad or whatever it is.
Yeah.
They don't cancel each other out.
Right.
Yeah. I think if you're using the word at least, just don't. Just stop. Like that should not be a thing.
I'm pretty sure Brene Brown has a thing on that about it's her empathy video. I don't know if you she didn't, I don't know that she made the video, but she has this speech, I think it's a TED Talk about empathy, and someone made a great illustrated video, and they use at least all the time. There's somebody who's fallen in a hole and someone says something that's totally unhelpful. But they use at least in there, or like, and she uses a bunch of examples, such as if somebody says, I had a miscarriage, at least you can get pregnant. Yeah. Like that's helpful at all, right? Yeah. So.
Yeah. And just don't. For any of our listeners, if you're tempted to say at least to anyone, just stop and think, oh, maybe this is hard for them, even though, and I'm sure they appreciate what they've been given, but it still may suck what they're going through.
Jess, do you want to talk about your...
Sure. We haven't had a whole lot of new things going on this week. Jamie finally waded out and not aged out of his bassinet. So yeah, he got too heavy. So we put his crib up in our room, and we live in a 3-bedroom house, and we currently have 2 other adults living with us in those other 2 bedrooms. So we are together, one happy family in our bedroom. But it's working out. We were able to fit it, and it's not too it's not too cramped in there. But TJ actually, when he was building it and put it up, and we got the little mobile, we have a little dragon mobile, it's so cute. He had mentioned just offhand, like, I just love having all the baby stuff in here. I was like, why? He's like, I don't know, it just feels so homey, and so everything's so happy, and then once we have his room, it's just all gonna go into another room, and it's just gonna be a sad, boring room with our bed and nothing else in it.
Eden's like, so when does Emmett get his own apartment?
Seriously, he's like, is this like him sleeping in our room gonna last? I'm like, yeah, it is, until he can sleep in his own. So it was a celebratory day when he moved to his own.
So the other thing that happened this week that my dog started to do actually was bring my shoes upstairs. Like she never chews them or anything. They don't mess with them at all. And now it's just every single day, whenever she comes upstairs if I'm upstairs and she's downstairs, she'll come up with a shoe. And if I don't bring it downstairs, she'll come up with another one. So I have like this little pile of shoes.
That is so... Which one?
It's Crouton, my golden. Yeah. And I think it's because it's been nicer weather. And so we've gone for more walks. So she's saying she knows when I put my shoes on that I'm going to leave. And she wants to go for more walks.
She knows which one's yours?
Yes.
I guess yours
always mine.
Scent, right?
Yes. She always brings my shoes up. And it's like I open my bedroom door and she's sitting there, and there's like a little pile of shoes.
That's the funniest thing I've ever heard. That's so cute.
But it's totally new behavior. She's 2.5 years old and has not really done that before. So anyway,
that's way
cute. Funny.
That's cute. I was just been thinking about this. I guess it's a little dramatic to call it a phenomenon, but I don't understand when my kids have had like all of their quote unquote needs met, like when they've had a lot of socializing and they've had a lot of outside time, or maybe not a lot, just enough, and they've had really good naps and they've had really good food, all like the good things, and nothing traumatizing, like a bath that day. Then for example, I think it was last week, they were over at Cody's house and they seemed like they had a really good day from everything that I heard and how they were acting. And even though I had like a full break from them and I should be quote unquote rejuvenated, it was still so stressful. They were like screaming and just coming apart. And I was talking to my mom about this, and just that I didn't understand. Not only was it tiring, but as if I didn't even have a break, because that level of whatever. It's like, I don't know how to articulate it. It's like it pierces the mama's soul or something, like just deflates. It's like I needed the whole break to combat that evening or something, that like 2-hour window or whatever. I don't know. Can you guys relate? I mean, I know Jamie hasn't really been like gone, but it just seems like, am I alone in that?
Yes, no, for sure. And I feel like too, Emmett is sometimes the worst for me
Yeah.
Like, Eden will play with him for an hour upstairs while I'm doing something, and then I'll come up, and I know he's playing good because I can hear him while I'm in the basement. He's just chilling. And then I'll come up, and immediately he gets mad, and he just wants to be held, and he doesn't want to play. Like, nothing calms him down. He's just, and I don't know if that's just because we are their safe place, and if they're not feeling good, then they know that they can lose it with us, and we'll still love them.
We'll see.
In theory,
Right.
but yeah, I don't know. And I've heard it gets worse as they get older too.
Oh.
Like we get the tantrums and the fights and all of the good stuff.
It's so crazy. Just both sides. Like I said, they had all these good things and all these needs met. And obviously, like, maybe they're just tired. Maybe it's the end of the day, whatever. And a lot of times people say, well, we just never know what kids want. No, I fulfilled everything that they would want. I know these things. It's like we could be right on track with each other. And then I would say, oh, they're hormonal, but I don't know how early that starts. So don't think that's it. So,
I don't know.
Yeah. For what, if nothing else, at least I know that I'm not alone in that you all can relate.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And maybe it just changes. Maybe the tantrums, maybe it's more of like their feelings. They don't know how to explain what they're feeling, so they throw, instead of, I don't know what, maybe that is, they're just frustrated with things and they don't know how to I don't know.
That I would be surprised if that's it. Like they're experiencing some level of stimulation, I mean in some way, and they don't have the words for it, so they're just gonna yell. I know I don't so much anymore, but I used to cry a lot, and I would just tell people, like, this is just, my body doesn't really know what it's supposed to do with this feeling. I mean, I feel a lot of things and then I cry, so it's just sort of the way that it's expressed, instead of maybe like yelling or something like that. I don't know, it's not always anger, but so maybe that's kind of like with kids, where they're like, I have a super itchy toe and nobody can help me, so they're just screaming.
Only solutions to cry.
And I think, if you just think about how we feel as adults in very complicated or very frustrating situations where we maybe don't know what's going on or whatever, and that same thing happens to kids. It's just for such simple reasons that we as adults look at it and go, that's stupid, you're fine, But from their level, if they're wearing the wrong color of pants or whatever, that can rock their world and make them really upset. And we don't have to understand it, we just have to kind of be there for them. But they are pretty dumb reasons to us, but not to them.
So good. I am in a weird way excited, maybe nervous. Excitement doesn't always mean happy, right? So I'm excited about the transition, or rather the stage we're transitioning into, where my kids are starting to talk. And so I've had friends that are just ahead of me, maybe a few years ahead, where they talk about their kids having big emotions, little bodies. Pretty, what's the word when you're like nervous, like intimidated? Yeah. I'm intimidated by that because I know it's really hard to be around anybody who's having a big emotion if you're like, what? So we'll see.
But at least they'll be able to tell you.
Yeah.
That'll be different.
Yeah.
So,
and hopefully it'll be lucky that you have a boy and a girl, because stereotypically they have issues at different ages, hopefully. Because I've heard a lot that, toddler boys or little kid boys are easier emotionally than girls, and then they kind of flip-flop, or vice versa. I can't remember what it is. But hopefully they'll kind of separate a little bit in their personalities, and you'll be able to navigate it pretty well.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing, you guys. We'll go ahead and talk about our product praise section, and then we will hear from Jessica. So I like this cup called the Click Lock Weighted Flexi Straw Cup by Munchkin, and I'll describe it, but we'll have it in the show notes. So it has a cover that goes over the straw area to help theoretically keep it clean, but we know, like, the kids know how to flop it back, the lid back, and then they just all share. But the reason why I like it is because, like the name implies, it has a weight at the end of the straw, so it gravitates toward where the water is somehow. I don't know how it does that. Yeah. And so it makes it an easier learning curve for learning how to drink from a straw. Although Cody, I think you really helped my kids with that approach, like lifting it and then bring it down. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they learned from that.
I can explain a little bit.
Will you?
This is just from trial and error, but what we did for Emmett to have him learn how to drink from a straw is he was used to drinking from cups. He had used sippy cups like that and regular cups where you tilt them up. But it seemed like when it was down low, he just didn't know what to do with it because there was no direct water coming at him. And so what I did is I took the water bottle, and if you have a water bottle that leaks a lot when it's tipped up, don't do this.
Yeah.
It's gonna spill. But I took his water bottle and I tilted it up like he was going to drink from a sippy cup, and then as soon as he started sucking, I brought it down, and he would continue sucking, and then realized that there was water coming out, and then it was down, and from that point it was pretty straightforward. He got it after that. So if any of you parents are stuck with that, there you go.
I recommend that way, but I really think the catch is what you're saying, like having a water bottle, not like a sippy cup or not a strawed cup, like an actual water bottle that has a sort of spout on it. Because I have seen other video explanations or tutorials, and they didn't make any sense to me. I think they were explaining the same concept with a straw, though, like you suck it up and hold it with your finger. And they tried to explain it the same way, but it just didn't resonate with me. But then when you showed what you just described, Cody, that made a lot more sense. And so I think if you're also a parent that is struggling with that, trying this approach is good. Plus, Emmett drinks like a boss out of that water bottle. So it's not like you're not going to have anything to do with it. Yeah. Yeah. So I was thinking about that, about getting some of those, but for my kids, but they don't, I mean, we don't go out and about so much, but when they get a little bit older, it's really nice. So
yeah, maybe I'll do product praise for the water bottle we have, because I like it a lot because it's kind of difficult to open.
Yeah.
So he doesn't get into it and like put dirt all over the spout, and yeah, it's our traveling water bottle strictly. So we don't use it at home. When he's eating meals, he doesn't use it. It's specifically for when we go out and he needs water when we're at the park or something. And I push the button, the spout comes up, he drinks, then I put it back down.
Okay, cool. Well, then we'll go ahead and transition to Jess's story.
So I have a lot that I could talk about because when dealing with the subject of parenting and all things included, I've got over a decade of material. But as I mentioned before, we struggled with infertility. I'm not really going to focus a lot on that, just because I feel like we might be talking about that in other episodes and other seasons. So I won't necessarily worry too much about that. But I did want to sort of talk about my experience with discovering my diagnosis and getting through it first, as well as getting pregnant and everything that came after that. So I was diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome, however you have heard it or seen it. But it's commonly known as PCOS. And I think it's a lot more common. Well, I know it's a lot more common now than it was when I was first struggling with this. It's been almost 11 years now since I've been married. So in the beginning, we weren't trying to have kids or anything, but I went to a doctor to just mentioned that I was getting married and that I wanted some form of birth control because we didn't want to have kids right away. And I had irregular periods for most of my teen years. And I mentioned that to the doctor. And since I was going on birth control, which regulates your periods, my doctor at the time didn't do any testing, didn't talk to me about anything. She just said, okay, here you go. You know, when you go to the doctor and you ask for birth control, they just give it to you. So we did that. And then probably about 9 months or so after we got married, we talked about having kids. And so I went off the birth control. And that was when I started discovering that I couldn't get pregnant. Just months and years had gone by without using any form of birth control and no pregnancy. So I had to do a lot of research on my own to figure out what was going on. And it was probably about 5 years or so of me just researching and going to different doctors and trying to figure out what was going on. I had, oftentimes on this podcast, I have maybe a skeptical view of visiting a doctor or something along those lines. And it's from my experience because I probably visited maybe half a dozen or more doctors in that 5-year period. And I've had doctors tell me things like, for my irregular periods, I can give you birth control. And so I would say, okay, well, I'm trying to get pregnant though. And then they would say, okay, then you need to go to a fertility specialist and do IVF. There was no in between.
Oh my gosh.
So it was like, okay, I'll give you birth control, regulate your periods. And then you go off birth control and they are irregular again.
Would your periods get regulated when you were on birth control?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. They did what they were supposed to do. But the thing with birth control is it doesn't, obviously you are preventing pregnancy, but it doesn't really help with any ovulation as well. So even though I was on birth control, not ovulating. Wow. So yeah, it was not helpful. I had another doctor tell me to lose 40 pounds and then come back, and they would help me after I lost that weight. I, after a while, figured out that it was PCOS and figured out that the most common medication treatment for PCOS is metformin, which I think everyone who knows about PCOS has heard of because it's so common. But
I've heard of metformin a lot, but not connected to PCOS.
It's a diabetes medicine.
Okay. I was like, I feel like, because, so just quickly, since I worked in mental health for a long time, I also trickled into other areas. So I was thinking, they gave you a psychiatric drug? Because that's like all that, which I mean, I know like there's a lot of drugs that have multiple purposes, but I was a little bit nervous.
So it's primarily for diabetes. And so I went to a doctor and I said, I believe I have PCOS. I'd like a prescription for metformin. And they told me no, because I did not have diabetes, that they would not give me metformin. So I had to
Had they test you for diabetes? Maybe
you did. They did, and I did not.
Okay.
Yes.
I just mean like it sounds like they're kind of like, okay, like whatever you say up until that.
At the time, were there tests for PCOS that they could have done?
There were, but it just wasn't very common. So, yeah, they just didn't, it was birth control or nothing back then. I mean, and it's so weird to think about it now because there are so many doctors that know what it is. And it's so common.
Very well known.
I think I wrote it down. Yeah. 1 in 10 women of childbearing age have PCOS. There's 4 different types of PCOS and 1 in 10 women have it.
Wow.
And it's interesting because you said like back then, you're talking about a decade ago, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's, I mean, to put it in just a little bit different perspective, that's 2010. Like we're not barely 2000s or end of 1990s.
And this is like the
50s.
10,
like
5 to 10 years ago, because it took me about 5 years to really find a doctor who knew what was going on and get me on the right track.
Yeah, so it was even less than that. It was more recent.
Yeah. So before I get into actually figuring out what it is, or figuring out a doctor that can tell me what it is, just for those who don't know anything about PCOS, because like I said, it affects 1 in 10 women. So there are women who do have children without any treatment or any testing or anything and still have it. So what it is it's a hormonal disorder where your body is producing more male hormones than they should. Everyone produces female and male hormones, no matter what gender you are. But when you have PCOS, you're just producing more of those male hormones. Testosterone is an example of one of them. And there are 4 different types of PCOS, but the most common type, which is the one I have, is called insulin-resistant PCOS. And insulin resistance, just to simplify it, means that my insulin cannot process my sugar into energy. So my body is creating insulin. I'm eating food, which is increasing my blood sugar. But my insulin is not basically processing or getting rid of the blood sugar. So you have high insulin and you have high blood sugar. Because I have high blood sugar, then my brain is telling my body to produce more insulin to take care of the blood sugar, which then increases the amount of insulin that I have. And when you have higher insulin, you actually feel hungry a lot because your brain is telling your body that you need to increase the blood sugar to use the insulin. So it's just this horrible cycle of hormonal imbalances. And then, of course, that triggers so many other things. Yeah. And having high insulin is one of the things that tells your ovaries to create more testosterone, which means that you have more of that in your body, which is then telling your body not to ovulate because you have that high testosterone. So it's like this domino effect of stuff that's going on. And one of the things that I didn't find out until I went to all those different doctors and then finally went to a fertility specialist back when we were in California about 5 or 6 years ago, that told me that that weight gain was one of the symptoms of insulin resistance and of PCOS. And because of this cycle, losing weight is not as simple as just eating healthy and exercising. She actually said to me, and her name is Dr. Amy Avazadeh, and it's spelled strangely, but we can link it in the show notes. And she's amazing. She's in the Bay Area of California. So if you're there and you're looking for a fertility specialist, she's awesome. But she told me that I could be a hamster running in a hamster wheel all day long and still gain weight. It's not nothing you can do, because obviously you can, but when you're just doing normal things and you don't know anything about what's going on inside your body with the hormones and stuff, it's just so defeating. So that was one thing that I was experiencing. Some of the other symptoms, like I said, irregular periods and ovulation, which means you don't ovulate at all, heavy or long or frequent periods, which I experienced those as well. So I would go without my period for a while, and then I'd have a really heavy one or a really long one, or I'd have 2 or 3 in the same month.
And when did that start? I mean, from the get-go, when you got periods, it was like that?
It wasn't right away, but I did notice that it got worse as I gained more weight, as I got older. So like right when I got my period, which actually getting your period early is another symptom of PCOS. And I got mine when I was, I think, between 10 and 11, maybe 11, which isn't super early, but it is earlier than some. And it was fine in the beginning. But then, like I said, as I got older, as I gained more weight, then the symptoms got worse. And so, yeah, I actually went just over a year without having my period at all, because I wasn't on birth control. And then I had to just go back on birth control to get my period back, because it's not healthy to have to go more than a few months without it. So, yeah, there's other symptoms too, like acne, obviously due to hormonal imbalance, hair growth, like facial and body hair growth, and hair loss on your head, which is like just doubly bad. No. And then you can get ovarian cysts, which is where the name comes from. I actually had never gotten them until just recently. My ultrasound with Jamie, they told me I had one, but I'd never had one burst or anything like that, which I have heard can be quite painful. So, and there's a lot more symptoms as well, but those are the main ones that can kind of tell you. But if there's anything going on with your period, if your cycle is not regular in any way, it's beneficial to go and get it tested and get it figured out. I also figured out during this period, or during really the last 5 years, so more recently, that it runs in families. So if you have any moms, grandmas, cousins, anything like that have experienced irregular periods as well. My sister actually has it. I found out that a couple of my cousins have it. One of them struggled to get pregnant, but eventually was able to. I think she used Clomid to get pregnant. And then a really interesting experience was my grandma passed away a couple of years ago, and they left me all of their pictures and videos and stuff, and I'm digitizing all of it. And so as I was digitizing an old, I don't know, video of when I was a kid or something, my mom and my grandma were talking, and I was probably about 3, and they were talking about my mom trying to have more kids. And my grandma said that she had a really hard time getting pregnant when she was overweight. And then when she would lose the weight, she was able to get pregnant. My mom had gained quite a bit of weight after I was born. So she was telling her that if she lost weight, that she would most likely have an easier time getting pregnant. And that is very similar to my experience. And with PCOS, it's so strange, but they do go hand in hand.
Was that before your sister?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah. I was only 3. My sister was born when I was 16.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
Yeah, it was. And then, yeah, my mom was able to get pregnant with my sister, and she actually had lost quite a bit of weight before she was exercising a lot and stuff like that before my sister was born. So, yeah, there's definitely a correlation with that. And so I was aware of this finally, that my weight not only was difficult to lose, but vital to being able to get pregnant. Obviously, there are other treatments and things that you can do, IVF, Clomid, things like that. We didn't actually have to do fertility treatments, which was kind of a miracle. But step 1 for me, after finding that out and after really confirming that, was I just want to lose the weight to be healthy. And then we can worry about, I didn't want to do fertility treatments while being overweight to kind of have that extra burden. Plus, it's not as healthy for the baby and stuff like that. So that was what I had tried to do after finally meeting with Dr. Avazadeh and getting tested. I've had so many blood tests done. And like, if I go to give blood or get, poked in any way to have blood taken out there, how they're very gentle with their bedside manner. And I'm like, whatever, I'm so used to it. It doesn't even faze me anymore because I have just had so many needles. But a couple of things, if you are looking to get tested, there are lots of doctors out there now that they can specialize in PCOS. And that's actually what I looked for in my doctor here in Utah, was that they specialize in that. And they don't have to be a specialist, a fertility specialist or anything like that. There are regular family practice doctors and OBs that can specialize in PCOS. But a couple of things that they would test for to see if you had PCOS for sure was your testosterone levels and your luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone, LH-FSH, specifically the ratio of the two. So if you have a 2-to-1 or a 3-to-1 ratio of LH to FSH, then it's too high. Your LH is too high, and then that can diagnose PCOS. They should be about the same level, or your luteinizing hormone is kind of lower, and then it will spike as you ovulate. It'll go up, and then it'll go back down, which will then trigger menstruation. So that up and down of the LH level is where the ovulation comes from, and that just wasn't happening for me. I had a 3-to-1 ratio of LH to FSH, and it never went down. My free floating testosterone in my body was way too high. My insulin was too high. But surprisingly, I've had many tests for diabetes because they run so closely together with blood sugar issues and things like that, that having diabetes can be a symptom of PCOS or vice versa.
Really?
But I never had it. I was never at a risk for it, which was great, because that, even though I had to take diabetes medication and I had to monitor my blood sugar every single day, and I had to do a lot of things that diabetic patients do, I have never had that. So yeah, it's a very interesting disease. I think I'm glad that we're learning more about it, and that women can be a little bit more educated about it. So this was about, like I said, 5 years or so after we got married, we started doing those tests. TJ got tested as well, got a sperm test and everything, just to make sure that everything was working on his end and it was fine, so we could focus on me. And then we moved to Utah. So like right after we did all that testing, we just moved. And so I had to find a new doctor here. And I think I went through another 3 doctors here in Utah, 3 or 4 doctors before I found the one that I'm with now, who has helped me all the way. Every single doctor helped me a little bit, even if they didn't help me at all. Just
helped you to know what you didn't want.
Helped me to know what I didn't want to see. Having a doctor helped me to know what I needed to learn more about, whatever it was. Yeah. So yeah, I probably went to a different doctor every single year of our marriage. But I did finally took some of what Dr. Avazadeh had taught me, and then finally came to the doctor I have right now and what they taught me. And we were able to find like a winning combination of fixing my lifestyle and my diet and taking medications to really just get the weight off, which is sadly the most important thing to do when you have PCOS. And I've seen it in a lot of cases as well. Just losing that weight is so important. So I focused on that real hard. For a while, I was taking metformin and Victoza, which is another diabetic medication. It's an injectable medication. And the metformin wasn't great, so I switched that out. I tried probably 2 more diabetes medications in addition to the Victoza that weren't great. So we just, with this doctor I have now, went with the Victoza, and I was on phentermine as well, which is a diet medication that reduces your appetite and increases your metabolism. So it was just basically helpful to me to not, because like I said, with high insulin and high blood sugar and them not working, not getting rid of the blood sugar properly, you feel hungry all the time. You can eat so much and still just be ravenous all day long.
It's like being pregnant.
Yeah. Actually, during my pregnancy, I did not have symptoms of PCOS. I did not have the hunger.
Is that normal?
For some people.
Common?
Yeah.
Normal.
Yeah.
What's
I don't know.
normal?
It is common during pregnancy because your hormones are more regulated for pregnancy, which is kind of what's going on in your body when you have PCOS and you're not pregnant. There's a lot of symptoms of pregnancy that are similar with PCOS. So my hormones actually regulated themselves while I was pregnant. And now since Jamie has been born, I am getting more of those symptoms back. So yeah, so that was what I was doing. And then I was also eating a low carb diet because carbohydrates increase your blood sugar. So eating a low carb diet is very, very important if you have insulin resistant PCOS. And so I was eating less than 100 grams of carbs a day, which the average person is like 250 to 350, something like that. So I did that, and then I was exercising as well. So with this combination, this beautiful, beautiful combination, I lost 90 pounds in just over a year, which is crazy. I'd never lost that amount in the whole 10 years of me trying to lose weight. It would be like 20, 30 pounds, and then I'd gain it right back. So that was awesome. And I felt great. And then during my pregnancy, I gained about half of it back. So now I have to do it all over again, but it's okay. Cause
not all over again.
Not all, not all, just half, but it's okay because I'm very, very happy to have Jamie. That was the main goal for me, was to be healthy. And honestly, at that point in time, it had been so many years and such a struggle to figure out what was even going on and everything that, my husband and I, and, he might talk about it more in his episode, but we went through a lot of struggle of trying to figure out, well, do we adopt? Do we do IVF? Do we have the money to do that? The answer is no. So let's wait.
Spoiler.
Spoiler. We did not have the money. And it was really hard for me during this time too, because I knew it was all my fault. And I hate to say that, but that's how I felt at the time. Looking back now, I don't have that much of a negative view of it because I actually understand what was going on. But during that, I just felt like I didn't have any willpower. Like it was totally my fault. If I could just diet and exercise properly and, lose this weight, then I could have a baby naturally and we wouldn't have to pay this money and we wouldn't have to have these struggles, like this whole thing. I just felt I internalized it all and I just felt like it was all on me. And so I didn't want to put that on him and say, well, I want a baby and I want a baby now. So let's put this 30 grand that we don't have towards having it when I can't, fix myself or whatever. It was, it's that internal thing. So I didn't push to do it. I'm sure I tried to convince him or whatever, but I didn't, say, ultimatum, all or nothing. We have to do this, because I did have that going on. And then, after probably 6 or 7 years or so of going through that and just realizing that it probably won't happen for me and being okay with that. That was my emotional struggle. And again, that's more about infertility, so I won't go too much into it. But before finding out anything about being pregnant, came out the other end, figuring that I was never going to have a baby of my own, and that was okay. And I just wanted to be healthy. So taking these medications and this diet and this exercise, it was always in the back of my mind, well, maybe if I lose enough weight, maybe, but I just wanted to be healthy. And so that was a real eye-opening experience for me, because for the previous, 10 years or whatever, I was doing it to get pregnant. And just thinking of myself first and my life and trying to be, a happy, healthy person was so much better for me emotionally and, for my mental health and everything like that. So
like that was your constant no matter what happened.
Yeah. And I feel like that is what motivated me more. And I had this issue as well that, if I could think of my unborn children or whatever and how they were waiting to be born and how, I was personally preventing them from coming, and I just kind of had this guilt and everything. And then I also had guilt that why isn't the thought of my unborn children enough to motivate me to work harder? I mean, it was just all of this big ball of negative emotion, and it just wasn't. I mean, you have to, when it comes to weight loss or fitness or any type of goal that is very difficult, you have to have a motivator that works for you.
Like your real why.
Yes, your real why, and not just what you think should be enough, right? So I finally found that, and it was so much, I don't want to say easier because it was still very, very difficult, but I was able to accomplish something I never had before. So after I had lost that weight and I felt great and I was still losing weight, I had gotten rid of all of my like clothes that were too big for me, and I had gotten a whole new wardrobe, and I was like, yes, I'm successful. I'm still doing it. But the medication, specifically the phentermine, actually loses its effectiveness. So you have to kind of take breaks. So my doctor and I had decided, okay, I was going to go off it for 3 months and then I was going to go back on it.
Is that like with the Clomid kind of what happens?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we had decided, TJ and I had decided that going off the phentermine, I was also going to go off the Victoza because I didn't want to spend the money and stuff on one when it was really the combination of the two that was working well. So I said, well, if I'm going, and I was on birth control at the same time because it was keeping my menstruation cycles regular because I didn't want to go without my period. So I said, well, if I'm going off of these two, maybe I go off the birth control and just see what happens. So I was going to go off everything for the 3 months. And like, think of this from my point of view. I have gone 10 years without getting pregnant, without any prevention. For most of my marriage, we did not have any prevention whatsoever, and nothing had ever happened. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll just go off of it for 3 months. We'll see what happens. We'll see if I have a period. Yeah. We'll see if I have a period or not. Like, that was basically what I was looking for, was, am I going to have a menstrual cycle? That's it. Without birth control. And then we'll go back on everything 3 months. So that was in February of last year. And we went on our 10-year anniversary trip. We went to Zion National Park and we stayed at a really awesome buffalo ranch and everything. And it was really great. And we did hiking and everything. And our anniversary is in April. So when we got back from our anniversary, and I was supposed to have my period on the trip, because I was tracking it and I got my period in March. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm supposed to get my period right in the middle of our trip. And I didn't. And so I was like, well, that's it. I'm not going to get my period without the birth control. So whatever, we'll go back on it next month. We got home from the trip and I took a pregnancy test. And this was not an uncommon thing for me to do in the entirety of our marriage, and anyone who's experienced infertility knows that you always have pregnancy tests on hand. I always had them. I had, at the ready whenever I didn't have a period regularly or whatever, which was all the time. When I wasn't on birth control, I would take a test. So
was it like every month you were taking a test, like for your whole marriage?
No, because after a while, you kind of get used to the fact that it's going to be irregular or whatever. So every few months I would take one just in case. The show, I didn't know I was pregnant. You know that show where... Oh,
that's a show called I Didn't Know I Was Pregnant.
Yeah.
Oh, just no, that sounds vaguely
where people
familiar.
just have babies and they're like, oh, I didn't even know. And I just fell out in my pants.
Slipped out.
That was my biggest nightmare.
I had back pain.
Yeah, right? I was in the tub and then all of a sudden...
40 weeks of back pain.
Yeah. So...
Oh my gosh, worst bath ever.
If you have ever watched that show at all, most of the people on it find out that they have PCOS, or that they have PCOS and they knew it or whatever, but they weren't taking birth control. And some people were even on birth control, because actually with PCOS, you have a higher chance of getting pregnant in a lot of cases. My doctor told me when you're on birth control, it's like 97% preventative. But when you have PCOS, the 97% is actually higher than, or lower. The 3% is actually higher than.
You guys are the 3%.
Yeah. We're the 3%. So there is a better chance, which is still very, very, very slim because it's preventing pregnancy, right? Mm-hmm. So I would just take these tests just periodically to make sure that I didn't have a baby in the bathtub. And so we got home from our trip and I took the test. Taking the pregnancy test first thing in the morning is most accurate, by the way, in case anyone didn't know that.
I've heard it's because, I mean, is this why? Because I've heard you should take it in the morning because the hormone is the strongest.
Mm-hmm.
Is that
it's been saving up all night?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like kind of like how your pee is the darkest in the
Yeah,
morning.
it's
Same
less
reason, right?
diluted from liquids. Yeah, I don't know.
Right along the same track.
I don't know. So
education right here.
That's that. It is true.
So I took it first thing in the morning and it was positive. And my immediate reaction was that this test is too old or that it was a false positive or whatever, you know, a million thoughts.
Yeah.
So I immediately took another one because I had 2 in my sink or under my sink.
Always prepared.
Right? Yeah. And I took another one and it was also positive. And so I still at this point did not believe it.
Were you like, you really didn't believe it? Or looking back, did you think like you just didn't want to get your hopes up?
100% did not believe
Really?
the
You're
tests
like,
were accurate.
These stupid tests are
Yes.
all accurate.
Yeah,
Yes.
like there's no glimmer of, oh, this could be.
It was like, it was a decade of getting my hopes up. Every time I didn't have my period, every time I thought I felt nauseous in the morning, every time anything.
Yeah.
And then being told that I wasn't. A decade of that. So you finally see like, oh, it's a positive test. It takes so much to convince, at least me. It took so much to convince me. So my in-laws were actually in town staying with us. They were watching our pets while we were on our trip. They were going to leave the following day. And I didn't want to tell TJ while his parents were there and have to tell his parents as well. Because again, you have to understand this is 100% totally unexpected, not real feeling at all. And also very high risk, very high risk.
A lot of fear.
Yes. So I wanted to make sure and I wanted to keep it a secret and whatever. So I made up some lame story about having to go to the store for something that I was out of. I don't remember what I said anymore, but I was just like, yeah, I just got to run to the store for some stuff.
Get some ice.
Yeah. Whatever it was. I don't know. But I went and I bought 2 more boxes of pregnancy tests. So in total, I took 7 pregnancy tests at home and they were all positive. And so I still didn't feel like it was real. But at this point I was like, well, I guess I better tell TJ because it might be. And then all of a sudden I was like, what
These
do I
7
even
positive
do?
pregnancy tests may mean I'm pregnant.
It's possible.
Like this is like a stats class. Like, what are the odds?
Right?
When 100%.
Right.
Like,
And they were all different brands. I was like, oh, maybe it was just like a really cheap brand or maybe it was old or whatever. So I got, they were like 4 different brands.
Does 7 different flavors of pizza put together equal one pizza? I'm just not sure.
No.
I'm not sure.
There's 8 slices to a pizza. No. So I waited until his parents had left the next day, or no, I didn't actually. They were leaving first thing the following morning, but I could not wait the whole time. So at night we went to bed. I put all the pregnancy tests into a box, and my husband hates surprises. He hates surprise. He does not. I don't think he is necessarily against them, but he will not ever act surprised. He will always react negatively to a surprise. So I didn't want to do anything real cute, like give him a onesie or whatever, especially again, given what we've had been through. I was like, I'm just going to tell him, but I couldn't just tell him and be like, oh, I'm pregnant, because that's just lame. I had to do something. So I put all of them in a box and I gave him the box to open, and he reacted okay. I mean, again, at this point we had been through a lot, and we both really wanted kids, and I think he had the same feelings, and maybe he'll talk about it in his, but that it just totally didn't feel real. And it was just, some was just like, well, there you go. That
was his reaction.
That's just what they say. Yeah.
There you go.
It was both of us. That was just both of us. Like, well, I don't even know. And then I have gone through years of preparing to be a parent. I have always wanted to be a mother. So I learned so much about pregnancy and childbirth and parenting and everything. I had even started to become a doula at one point. I was looking into going to school to be an ultrasound sonographer. Like, I just learned so much because that's all I could do was research, right? And as soon as I found out I was pregnant, I was just like, what do I even do? what do I do first? Where do you go? What, you know,
shocked.
Right. Yeah. I'm like, well, I guess maybe make a doctor's appointment. What do I tell them? Maybe I'm pregnant. I don't know. What do you like? It was all gone. Everything that I had learned was just gone.
This is an example of like why you shouldn't do fire drills. So it doesn't matter.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
You're just going to run around with you screaming with your arms flailing.
That is a good analogy. Like a good comparison.
Yeah.
So I did call my doctor and I said, I think I might be pregnant. And I really downplayed it. I did not tell them that I took 7 tests. I was just like, I think I might be pregnant. You know, maybe I should come in. They're like, okay, well, you can come in and we'll do a pregnancy test. And then they did blood tests on me to make sure that, like, you know, my levels were right and, you know, baby was doing well and whatever. So I went in and got the 8th and final positive test from my doctor. So I guess
the pizza's complete.
Yes, the pizza's complete. It was real. It was really hard for me to tell people about it because it was really hard for me to be excited. And I knew once I told people that they would be excited, and I wanted to reciprocate that excitement, but it was so hard to muster. I mean, so Cody was the second person to know because I had told somebody else just because I had to. Yeah. Because she's nosy. I was watching your kids. I was watching your twins, and she had come over with Emmett, and we were just talking. And so she asked me how things were going. I can't remember what you said. Something about
I think
how's
it was
your
still
baby
pregnant.
plans or something.
Or
No, Emmett was born.
Yeah,
Emmett was just born. It was so early on in the pregnancy.
Cody's like, this is the greatest thing ever. When's everyone else having one?
Yeah.
I probably wasn't at that point. I was probably still experiencing a lot of anxiety and depression.
Right.
And I was like, I don't want to be alone.
That's
probably what was happening.
Yeah,
it was in May, I think.
Yeah,
because I found out in the middle of April, so it was in May. But yeah, you had just asked me how the baby stuff was going because we had talked about my infertility previously and whatever, and I had this thing where I wasn't gonna lie about it because I didn't want to act or feel like I was ashamed or that, you know, my baby was anything to be. It was a positive thing, and I knew that, but I wasn't shouting it from the rooftops because a lot of fear and stuff like that. And so if anyone asked me about it, I would tell them, and that was my rule. And so you asked me, and so I told you. But I don't know if you remember how I acted at all, but with anyone who I told at that point, it was just kind of like, yeah, I guess it's happening. Kind of like,
yeah,
it was so hard for me to just be like, yeah, you know.
I think I was like, what? And you're like, yeah, it is. Very calm.
Yeah.
I probably started crying because I cried at everything that back then, and you were like,
yeah,
cool. It's okay. You're really excited.
Yeah,
I was though.
Yeah,
awesome.
and I wish that I could have let myself be excited at that time as well, because it really is the best thing to have happened to me, and it was just a lot of baggage and emotion, and again fear because it was really early. So we were waiting until 12 weeks to tell anyone because at this point we didn't know what the risks were going to be. A lot of women who are overweight are high risk pregnancy. A lot of women who have PCOS are high risk pregnancy. There's a higher rate of miscarriage with PCOS. There's just a lot of stuff that can happen. And so the rate of miscarriage goes down significantly after 12 weeks. And so we waited until roughly 12 weeks. I think maybe we told you and Phil a little bit before that. But
I was trying to remember what month it was that you told us, and I was thinking June, but I might have been crossing some wires in my head. Does that sound like it would have been about 12 weeks?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, so eventually we told everybody and told our family, and with my in-laws it was really cute because it was Father's Day that we told my in-laws, and I think we told you guys around that same time.
Yeah, I think you told them just before us, which I think, or you were gonna tell them soon or something close to that.
Because we did a video call. They're all in California, and we had sent my father-in-law a shirt that said, "I'm not retired, I'm a professional grandpa," something like that. And we did a video call with all of them and had them open it, and that was really cool and really exciting. And this is the first grandchild on their side of the family and stuff. So yeah, so eventually we got to be excited about it. But yeah, at first it was really hard, and it still didn't feel real for a very, very long time. I would say little things made it feel more real, but it was still like we didn't buy anything for him. We didn't really plan a whole lot until much later on in the pregnancy. And finding out the gender was one thing that made it feel a little bit more real. We did do a gender reveal, but I decided shortly after doing it that I didn't want to do it, that I didn't regret it because it was really fun, but I just kind of wish that I had shared that experience with TJ privately in the ultrasound. So I think if we have any more kids, we'll probably do that. But knowing the gender definitely made it feel more real. And then once I could feel him kicking, that helped a lot as well. But even in the ultrasound, the first ultrasound at 8 weeks and stuff, it was like, oh, that's cool. That looks like a thing, you know. It was just so hard to just wrap my head around, which I feel like a lot of women who experience infertility and then pregnancy after infertility probably feel that way.
Yeah.
That, like,
I'm sure there are a lot of women that are like relate. Yeah, this is exactly what I
yeah.
was feeling. Maybe not exactly, but relate to you for sure.
Mm-hmm. So once we kind of, I don't know, realized that it was real and it was happening and it was feeling real and he was kicking and everything, was probably well into the second trimester. Maybe even beginning of the third trimester, we're like, well, I guess we better start buying stuff and, you know, doing a registry and all that stuff, actually getting prepared for him. And we had this just running joke even up until he was born that it wasn't real. We would just be like, oh, we'll just buy this just in case, but, you know, we may not need it or, you know, whatever.
You think that was like a coping
yes
thing?
Yeah, I feel like it was a bit of a coping mechanism until we were fairly certain. Like, every appointment, the doctor would be like, well, he's healthy and his heartbeat's strong and everything's great. They never told me that I was high risk. We never had any issues with placenta previa or anything like that. And everything was just, you know, of course, on your mind when you're pregnant, like, oh, this could happen or this could happen or whatever it was. And we just kept going to every appointment and taking every test, and they all came back great. And I did my gestational diabetes test, which the initial one I failed. And I was like, okay, that's it. That's the thing that I'm going to have, right? Because PCOS and diabetes, and they're just, you know, hand in hand like peanut butter and jelly. And I thought for sure that I would have gestational diabetes. And so I went and did the 3-hour, and I didn't. I passed. So I didn't have that.
Sorry, you have to do the longer one.
Yeah, it was not fun. And actually, interesting story with that, we found out from that test that my body actually, probably from years of having PCOS is what my doctor said, actually overcompensated to process the sugar. So by the 3rd hour, the blood test, my blood sugar had plummeted. And when I left the doctor's office, I was nauseous and shaky and I needed to eat food immediately. I went to like the nearest fast food restaurant that I could and got something to eat because I was going to pass out like driving home.
Oh, no.
And when they gave me the results, they said, yeah, this is insane. Your blood sugar was so low. So it was was so high in the beginning, you know, and then my body just went overtime trying to process all the sugar.
There's no way that you had diabetes.
Right. It was just so crazy. But anyways, we just miraculously had a really easy pregnancy, relatively easy pregnancy. I had other stuff, you know, that was uncomfortable, but I didn't have any morning sickness. I didn't have any issues, and we didn't have any birth defects or anything with Jamie. I mean, it was, we kind of say it was, our struggle came before we got pregnant. So we were lucky enough to have a relatively smooth pregnancy and even delivery. So for my delivery, he was turning out to be really big. It was only in the last month, maybe, that I started growing a crazy amount. And I wasn't gaining a lot of weight. My belly was getting so much bigger. And he had just decided, Jamie, to just, you know, pack on the pounds, I guess, in those last few weeks. So I was due on Christmas Eve, and I went for my 39-week or 38-week appointment. 39-week appointment. And my doctor had said just the previous appointment, so 1 week or 2 weeks before that, told me that she was going out of town for the entire week of Christmas, which I specifically asked when we went to her and found out I was pregnant, which granted, this was, you know, a while in advance. I specifically said, are you going to be here? Because it's a holiday week, right? And can't remember if she told me that she was going to be here or if she said she didn't know or whatever, but I was under the impression for the entire pregnancy that she was going to be here for and then
this part always like gets me.
And then and actually she didn't tell me it was the appointment setter was setting my appointment. And she said, well, we won't set your 40-week appointment because your doctor will be on vacation that week. And I'm
Say
like,
what?
Yeah.
Say what?
Yeah.
Are we going together somewhere? Because that's the only way my doctor is going to be gone from me.
Yeah, right. So anyway, when I saw her at 39 weeks, and 38 weeks, she had kind of put a little bit of pressure on me to do an elective induction so that he would be here before the holiday. She kind of spun it like, he'll be here before Christmas, so then you won't have to worry about, having a baby over Christmas. But then also she was leaving town. And I said, well, we want to have him naturally, so we will just wait. And if we go into labor during that week, we'll just be with the on-call doctor or whatever. And that was our plan.
You're such a trooper.
Yeah.
I feel like I'd be having just a few more words.
Yeah.
Just a few more words with the doctor. I mean, maybe you're omitting that for the sake of this.
No.
But I just felt like you handled it like a champ. And I think I would have been like, no, let's dial it back for a second and talk about how you misled me. And she's like, I did mislead you. I'm like, I was deceived.
Yeah.
Like, I think I would have been a lot more dramatic than you.
Internally expressing that.
Okay.
But externally, I felt like it's not really going to do anything for the situation. I could go and find another doctor, but why? I'm due in, 3 weeks or whatever it was at the time. And
this is like a reflection of us.
It's a tricky relationship because we've spent 9 months building up this like excitement and mutual respect. And then you're like, you have to bring my child into the world. I should probably be on your good side.
Right.
At least that's how I felt with my midwife. At times I was like, I don't think I'm like really getting across how I feel, but I also want this to be a beautiful experience and not have any hard feelings in the room.
Yeah. Have her like down there and you're like, I hate your face. All that rough.
Well, and she was great in all other ways. Again, I've had horrible experiences with doctors. And I really wanted to find one that was going to listen to me, that was going to be open to more natural methods, not push, interventions on me.
Yeah.
But also one that was an actual doctor and not a midwife and not a home birth, which is what I initially was thinking of doing before we got pregnant, just because of the potential risks and things of being PCOS and being overweight and all that stuff. So we knew it was going to be a hospital birth and with a doctor. But I was okay with it. It was just disappointing. So after we got over the fact that my doctor was going to be gone, we still decided to move forward with the natural, waiting for contractions to come on their own and everything. I had been checked earlier that month and I was dilated to 1.5 centimeters. And I think she said 70% effaced, which if you're listening and you don't know, you want to be 10 centimeters and 100% effaced to give birth. So being 70% effaced was awesome. And I was really excited about that. And then every week I would go back for my appointments. She'd check me again. And it's the same all month long, just 1.5 centimeters, 70% effaced. So my 39-week appointment came. I hadn't changed at all. I had no contractions at this point. And she felt my belly and kind of tried to size him. And she said, well, I'm estimating he's about 8.5 pounds right now. And so my options were that I could go in that day and be induced. The following day was a Saturday and it was the Saturday before Christmas. So they already had like 6 inductions scheduled, so they wouldn't be able to fit me in. So it was that night I could go in, or I could potentially wait for him to come on his own. And if he didn't come on his own, I would be induced the week after Christmas once my doctor was back from vacation. She said on average, your baby gains about 0.5 pound a week. So if he's around 8.5 pounds now, we're expecting 10 pounds by the time he's induced. So I went home and I cried a lot because I was just a little bit upset, disappointed by the fact that I wanted things to happen gradually because it's a scary thing. And I didn't want to make the choice to go in and start this process. I wanted to just kind of have the contractions start at home and feel more comfortable and get through that labor at home. And that was just kind of out the window at this point because I felt like there's no way he's coming in a week when it's been, 3 weeks or more and there's been no progress. So called my husband told him what was going on. He came home from work. We talked about it. We prayed about it, talked about it some more. And he felt, I didn't have any kind of impression on what was right. I wanted to wait. And I think that was just my own personal stubbornness. He had a really strong impression that we needed to do it that day. So we called and I, said, okay, when do I go in? And the hospital called me. And so we went in like an hour later. So by having my appointment at, I think it was 2:30 in the afternoon or something, by 6 we were at the hospital being induced. And it actually went fairly well. I had heard horror stories about Pitocin, and I'm sure that it wasn't fun. Having Pitocin was not fun, but it wasn't as bad as I had heard stories of, at least for me. And then, they gave me the full dose. They have to give you a little bit, and then every half hour they up it. And they had gone to the most that they could give me, and I was not having any contractions at all. And it took probably a couple hours for them to start having like the maximum dose of Pitocin on. So my body really wasn't ready to have this baby. But I started having contractions and they were totally manageable. And I was just watching a show on my phone. I think I was watching Making It on my phone, which is a really funny reality show. And TJ was there and we were talking. My friend actually came and visited us. It was like 1 a.m. and she just came because I wasn't experiencing really anything. And she wanted to see me before things started picking up. And I think it was right after she had left that I actually started feeling contractions. And what's annoying about being induced is that you are hooked up to machines all the time. And that, I think, is the worst part for me during that laboring period was I had to go, they were pumping me with fluids because Pitocin lowers your blood pressure. So they have to give you fluids to keep your blood pressure up. So I had the fluid IV and stand. I had the Pitocin for a while hooked up to me as well. I had constant monitoring on me and on the baby. And if they moved at all and took more than a minute for me to put the sensor on the right spot, a nurse would have to come in. I'd unplug everything to go to the bathroom, which because I had fluids, I had to go to the bathroom like every 30 minutes to an hour. So I unplug everything, wrap the cords around my neck and pull the IV stand with me to the bathroom. I mean, it was just inconvenient to the max. I wasn't even, I think I was focusing so much on that the labor wasn't even bothering me. The contractions weren't even bothering me. And then my doctor came in, I think, the following morning and broke my water. I was at 5 centimeters. She broke my water, and within an hour, I was at 8 centimeters. So she canceled all of her appointments that day. She got other doctors to cover them. She came in. They got the whole thing ready. They got all the stuff in to deliver the baby or whatever. I was 8.5 centimeters. And then they checked me again an hour later. I was 8.5 centimeters on and on. Like, I just got stuck at 8.5 centimeters.
Worst.
It was terrible. It was terrible. Jamie was actually stuck on my pubic bone. His head was stuck on my pubic bone. So my contractions got more intense. They got closer together. After about an hour and a half of no progression at all, I was like, I can't do this anymore. And so I opted to get the epidural, hoping that the epidural would help me relax and help things speed up. And they thought for sure they'll give me an epidural and he'll be born within the hour. No. It was 5 hours. It took 5 hours to go from 8.5 to 10 centimeters. So, but finally I got there. It was like almost the whole day. I think she broke my water at 5 or 6 a.m. So we expected him to be born around 8 a.m. and he actually wasn't born until 4:30 p.m. So it was all that, most of the day just going from 8 to 10 centimeters. It was horrible.
Oh my goodness.
But the epidural was awesome, and it was not what I wanted at all. I was trying to do a natural childbirth, and people actually commented that I was doing really well, that I was very quiet. They were surprised that I was laboring naturally and that I was so far along dilation wise, and it felt great until that point that I felt like I was going to die. So anyone who is, trying to do it naturally, I feel like go for it, give it a try. But if you have to do the epidural, or if you want to do the epidural, I mean, it was awesome. The excruciating pain was immediately gone. I can totally see why people do the epidural. So at least through that period, I wasn't suffering. I was just kind of waiting for dilation to continue. And finally, I was at 10 and we were pushing. I think I pushed for an hour and a half, and I made a joke while I was pushing that I felt like a boxer, because I would push during a contraction and then we would rest. And while I rested, TJ would massage my shoulders and give me a sip of water between every contraction, because I was like, I'm starting to get a migraine, you know, from pushing. So he would just massage my shoulders, give me a sip of water, maybe dab my forehead or whatever. And I'm like, I feel like I'm, you know, when the bell rings and they go to the corner of the boxing ring. But yeah, it was an interesting experience. I think childbirth is so crazy because it's like horrible, but also amazing at the same time. I mean, at least an amazing result, because when Jamie came out, it was like awesome. It was the best feeling ever. And I was so glad that it was over.
Yeah.
But what was interesting for me too was after the epidural wore off, it was actually, I experienced really bad pain, searing pain, worse than anything I had experienced through the whole process of being in labor. And I don't know if it was because I had the epidural, which meant I felt nothing, and then all of a sudden I was feeling the aftermath or whatever, but they had to give me more pain medication right after it wore off. They gave me an immediate injection and that didn't do anything. So then they had to give me another type, and then I had to take that in pill form for a day before I could really not cry from pain. It was really interesting and not something I expected at all. It was like, the baby's out. I'm supposed to be done with the, you know, I mean, there's recovery, but it wasn't recovery pain. It was like active pain. I don't know if you felt anything like that, Cody, but
No.
I hadn't talked to anyone who had that
numb for a while.
Felt any, or, you know, I didn't hear any stories. I didn't research anything about that. It was just, yeah. And the doctors and the nurses were even stumped. They're like, where does it hurt? And I'm just like, everywhere. It was so, I mean, I tore a little bit. I didn't have an episiotomy. I don't know if it was the tear that was hurting or I had hemorrhoids, which are awful. And I don't know if that was also hurting, or, you know, I don't know what it was, but I was just like, it just hurts. Just stop it. And I was like crying in bed, laying on my side because I could not move. I couldn't sit. And so they couldn't move me to the recovery room because I couldn't sit in a chair at all. The, you know, wheelchair. It took me a while. They had to take Jamie away to the nursery for, I don't know, probably 20 minutes, half hour. TJ went with him and then came back to be with me because I'm like, I don't know. It was just such a shocking thing. I did not expect to have that be the worst part after it's all over. It just misleading. It was misleading. But then I was okay. I was recovering. The hospital was great. It's an awesome place. And we had decided, because it was a couple days before Christmas, his family had come into town. We had decided to leave the hospital as quickly as we could.
I don't think you've told us how big your baby ended up
being.
being.
I'm sorry. I forgot to say that. Yes. My baby ended up being 9 pounds, 15 ounces, and he peed on the nurse before he was weighed. So my doctor is firm that he was a 10-pound baby. So yeah, if we had waited to be induced, or waited for him to come naturally, or potentially be induced at the end of the month when my doctor was back, he could have been well over 11 pounds. So my husband was right. And I'm glad that I trusted him. And I'm glad that we entrusted my doctor and had that induction done. Even though I was disappointed, it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he maintains his hugeness. He is a giant, giant baby. But anyway, we wanted to leave the hospital as quickly as we could to kind of be with our family and recover at home and whatever. But shortly after doing that and going home, I realized that it was a mistake, at least for us, because I felt like I didn't need the help from the nursing staff. A lot of people talk about, I don't know what to do when I get home. I don't know what to do with the baby, how to take care of whatever. And I felt confident with that. My sister was born when I was 16 and was living with me in my house. And then once I was an adult, I was taking care of her part-time for her entire life until we were eventually taking care of her full-time. So when she was an infant and I was a teenager, I was taking care of her and getting up in the middle of the night with her and, feeding her and whatever. And so I felt pretty confident in that. And that was all I thought about. And I didn't actually think about, but when you actually get home, the rest of your life is waiting for you. We had guests in our home. We had holiday plans. We had pets that needed to get up at 6 a.m. to be fed and walked. And yeah, it was a huge mistake. So that was probably that, and the gender reveal are the two things from the whole experience that I feel like if we were to do it again with the second kid, I'm going to stay in the hospital as long as I can and just enjoy that free food and the help that they were providing, and just not have to worry too much about life at home. But Jamie's here now, and we are so excited and happy to have him. And he's an amazing baby. He's so happy and smiley all the time now, which you know, I've said before, we can just be having the crappiest day or night and be so grumpy, and then he just has this big old smile, and it just makes it all better. So I'm so grateful for that experience, and I have plans to try to get the weight off that I gained from Jamie and hopefully have more kids in the future. Now that I know it's possible, it's like a whole new world. Like I know there's something I can do, and I know how to do it. And even if it doesn't happen again for us, I'm fine with that. But I just I'm a mom, and I have such a better sense of, you know, what's going on with my body and how to control it. And that for me just means everything.
Yeah. That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us and your journey from all the years of infertility, PCOS, you know, the uncertainty. I hope that whoever is listening, if you can relate, this brings some solace, but also even if you don't have PCOS, you can feel related to and validated, because there's elements in every pregnancy story, you know, if you're a mother or a father, you can relate to it. Yeah. So be sure to catch our next episode, where we will have a guest, our final father, coming and talking about his perspective, Jessica's husband. And then also check out our website, partumthemess.com, where you'll find the show notes. We will have the products that we talked about today, but also our recipe. And our recipe today is going to be one that I'll share. It's just really simple. It's an Instant Pot mac and cheese recipe. Super simple. You don't need a lot of ingredients. So go ahead and check that out. If you are you have a small window of time for making dinner and you like mac and cheese, this will be appealing to you. And then also check us out on social media, Instagram and Twitter and Facebook at Partum the Mess. And then also, if you want to support the show and become a patron, you can check us out on patreon.com/partumthemess. So thank you so much for listening.
Partum the Mess.
We are making memories.